Welcome to the No Bull Political Arena with your hosts, Sophia Nelson, Bill O'Reilly, Brian Mistro, and TJ McCormick. It's real voices, raw politics, and no bullshit. TJ,
Yeah.
tell me what went through your mind as you listened to that address to the
Yeah.
nation last night.
Yeah.
Before I taint it any further, tell me
Yeah.
what you thought.
I got to tell you, as a political comms guy, as a guy who's done speech writing and worked with electeds and executives and stuff like that. I'm one of those people that watches President Trump a lot of times with one eye open and going, ooh, and just wincing and kind of, hoping that he just stays somewhat on track. I was on Newsmax television the morning of the speech, and my going into it assessment was keep it tight, keep it sober, keep it on point. If whatever you're going to say, don't go off on, because you can tell when the president goes off. And so, on the surface of it, there were fewer tangents than normal. There were too many tangents, but there were fewer than normal. This was, which is actually either not saying much or saying a lot, because the other part of this is that was that might have been the shortest, most brief addresses he's ever made. I cannot. When that thing came in at 18 minutes, it came in at 18 minutes. Now, for a fellow like you, it might have seemed like an eternity. For a lot of people who are at this point with up to here with him and all of that, it probably did seem like an eternity. However, I think he absolutely kept it as tight as he's ever kept something, and it was they did hit on some bullets. Why we're getting better, numbers are coming down, inflation is slowing, or he went off on tangents about gas. But with the flourishes, there was within each of those flourishes, there was the truth. Things are incrementally getting better. And we see where, a lot of promises were made. A bunch of them have been kept so far. He wanted to reiterate that. And he also just sort of put into words that he's proactive. And after like decades of inactivity, or a lot of promises, empty promises not kept by Republicans and Democrats, he's sticking to his guns, and sometimes those guns are aimed at Venezuelan drug lords, so on their boats. So we'll see. But anyway, I thought on the whole that it was as pithy as we've ever seen him, and it was brief.
Well, it was brief. I guess for Trump, that's a positive. So
Yes.
and I'll tell you. So I've listened to some of his rallies. I can usually last for about 5 minutes. And so I had this one. I'm sitting there cooking dinner for the kids, and I put this one up, and it got about 3 or 4 minutes into it, and I stopped and I look over at my wife. I said, "What the hell is he talking about?" So yes, I'm much more critical of him than probably most of the right, the center right. But my God, he was going off on these tangents, and it almost felt like he was screaming at me through the thing. And I'm going to tell you something else that really drove me crazy.
Yeah.
It was lie after lie after lie.
What was he lying about?
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, all right, let's talk about this. He said that there was 25 million illegals brought in during the Joe Biden administration. That is absolutely untrue. Even the Pew had it. Pew had the total illegals in this country as 14 million. Okay. The numbers that I've researched, okay, and I'm not talking about from left-wing media, it was 6 million people came in under Joe Biden illegally. Now that's still 6 million. Don't get me wrong. That's still 6 million too much, but
Sure.
it's a gross lie. I'll tell you another one. He said he's brought in $18 trillion, in guarantees for the country. The White House on their own webpage had it at 9 trillion. Okay.
Hmm.
So he keeps making these numbers up, and it started off, it was 1 trillion a couple of months ago, then it's 3 trillion, 6, 9, 12. I mean, even his own White House doesn't agree with him. And so I started going through, and I've got, on each one of his key points, I've got roughly 15 to 20 that weren't even gross exaggerations. They're just blatant lies. And
Hmm.
so that's one of the things that I think when people listen to us,
Hmm.
I want to be able to reach back out to them and say, look, he said this, this is not true. He said this, this is a gross exaggeration, and so forth. And Donald Trump, TJ, has long had an issue with gross exaggerations. I get it. Okay.
Sure.
That's just part of what you do, what you accept if you're going to listen to him.
Right.
But that thing last night was just one after the other after the other. So
Hmm.
that's where I really come off. If he had come out and he had said, "Hey, inflation is still going up. We're trying to get it under control. We've got this plan or this plan. Be patient with me, America," and so forth. That I think would have been a really good message to resonate.
Hmm.
Instead, he's saying that there is no inflation. Okay, yeah, it just came down to 2.6 today, but the Bureau of Labor and Statistics said don't trust that 2.6% because half of that is zeros we got from October. So we don't
Hmm.
have part of the information. So
Right.
there's just a way that he's the president of the United States.
Hmm.
And it sounded like to me, I was listening not to the president addressing the nation.
Hmm.
I was listening to a rally. I could
Yeah.
it sounded no different than a rally. And if he's going to do that, then I'm going to push back to you and say, if he's going to do that, we didn't need a presidential address because the next time that he does it, there may be something important to communicate.
Hmm.
And anybody that watched this last one is going to say, I don't want to go listen to another rally. So
Hmm.
it's kind of the boy who called wolf, cried wolf. And so
Right.
that's one of my biggest, and I've always had this issue with Donald Trump, but just be truthful,
Hmm.
be transparent.
Yeah.
What do you
And look,
think?
and listen, I mean, I always want to hold my guys to the highest standards possible. And I want, and I also just don't believe in whataboutisms. I recoil at whataboutisms. And, given the fact that both sides, do this, and both sides, the Biden administration was arguably co- completely, you know, uh, corrupted from the beginning, from the inception. If history bears out that that was a Manchurian presidency, I mean, the controversy there escalates to untold, levels. And so now, again, I'm not going to participate in whataboutisms, but look, this is the guy we're dealt. We also know it's the last voice in his ear. That's the thing. That's when he goes on tangents. It's that last person who whispered. Who knows what? And again, I'm taking a totally, I didn't crunch numbers. I'm taking an amateur armchair pedestrian position on this. I don't know that some of that 25 million illegals. Who knows if that's a number that could be a number that was extrapolated from, over the course of boom, we were left with, and in that time, over the course of those periods, at any given moment, there might have been 25 million that had crossed. You know what I mean? That's the sort of number that he'll cling on to as a truth. And when he presents it as an absolute statistic, that's a truth. That bothers me that he says it. But, and I'm being forgiving clearly, because also I'm sort of at peace with the fact that this is our guy. This is who we've got. And he was elected doing this very thing, the rallies, as you point out. And you're not wrong. I don't disagree. So, it's like I think it's on us now and it's on his administration to be as honest and open as possible and help people do some distillation of what he says. if they dare to do so, if they want to get,
Yeah.
I know. Again, he is not like anybody else, and I don't say that in a fanboy way. And I'm also not reinventing the wheel by saying that he is unlike anybody else. And for anybody in this country who ever said, I want a non-politician as the I want somebody from outside the Beltway, I want somebody, well, we have somebody who is all those things. And maybe it's about maybe it's about, doing what he's got to do, what he thinks he's got to do. And as long as he stays on this side of not breaking the law, or putting the country in jeopardy, when he makes a grandstanding number like 25 million illegals, is he endangering anybody? Is he breaking the law? I don't know. And if he is, bad. Clearly, impeach him. Um, uh, so, again, I want a guy to stay within the law and not hurt America. And I mean, and ultimately, if things keep going, if the big beautiful law has good chickens that come home to roost, and we benefit from that, then that milestone legislation will have been a great thing. Um, you know,
So
eh,
I'll just add to that. So here's why the lies, in my opinion, are such a big deal.
sure.
Number one, okay, just strictly from the fact that, hey, all presidents have lied. Okay, I'm sorry, Democrats. Joe Biden told some big ones. Okay, I mean it's you go
And his
back to
entire presidency might very well have been a lie.
again, I don't know about that, but I can definitely say every president lies.
Yes,
But
sure.
to lie repeatedly with over and over and over easily disproven facts. So that's the problem. So even his own White House didn't agree with him. Okay. So
His
if you're
website.
yeah, I mean his own website. So it's that's how far it was. But let's look at this from 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than the fact that this is the presidency, and as Americans, we should expect a higher level
Yes,
from the president.
I
Okay.
totally
It's
agree.
not just the president, it is the presidency.
Yes.
Number two issue that I have with this is that if this is what you actually believe, and these facts that he's throwing out is what he actually believes, he's making policy off of some of these facts. How can you make good policy if you don't even know the truth? So is
Well, he's
he
got good border policy. He's got, I think, just going on the things that you said were lies. The border numbers. I mean, actually, when you think about it, who gives a damn if it was 25 or if it was 3 million? The border is finally blessedly shut. That is in fact a good thing, regardless of how many came in. Again,
Mhm.
I am absolutely mitigating or minimizing the lies. I totally am. I cop to it. At the same time, I'm just saying, yes, you have a good point, in terms of, creating policy and drafting legislation based on lies. But at the same time, that's where the checks and the balances come in. And as we saw throughout the entire 4 years of the first Trump presidency, those bumpers were well in place, and everything from Muslim country travel bans to numerous EOs and other things were knocked down and never saw the light of day. And so, if bad legislation based on lies doesn't make it through Congress like it shouldn't, then so be it. Then his bad math and his lies won't support bad legislation because Congress won't pass it.
Well, I mean, you've got a point there. I'm going to push back again and say this president, more than any president I have ever known in my lifetime, has a control over Congress to do what he wants than anybody else I've ever seen. Okay, it's the joke of it is that Mike Johnson works in the White House, so
Mm-hmm.
and I think most people will agree with that. It's pretty obvious that there has been no Republican, maybe short of Reagan. There's been no Republican that has ever held control over a political party like Donald Trump does. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, He's a once in a generation, for good or bad, political leader that we have. I mean, we've just never seen anything like this
Well,
before.
if you and I lived through his presidency like that, with multiple rampant impeachments and just a arms folded Congress, I think I'd come into my second presidency going, I'm going to control the goddamn Congress.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's what he's doing because most of these people are too damn scared to push back. But it's funny how when they're coming up for reelection and they have to avoid a primary, how they're all of a sudden Donald Trump's best friends. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's we've got to separate out between, hey, he's trying to do some good, and maybe he is trying to do some good in some of this stuff, but I don't see this Congress ever pushing back on Donald Trump. It's they haven't done it, okay? And anytime he says something that's batshit crazy,
Mm-hmm.
which is more often than not anymore, you go up to Johnson and they say, Johnson, what did you think about it? Do you agree with the president on this? Well, I haven't seen it. Come on. Come on, come on, give me a
Yeah.
no. I
Hey,
mean,
look,
if the Democrats can't walk out a door with him knowing everything that they're thinking he can lead.
the previous 4 years sometimes force me to do something that I loathe. Um, Biden's sharp as a tack. What puts the country more in danger? Telegraphing to the entire world that a man who is in early stages dementia with control over the nuclear arsenal is sharp as a tack, or saying that you didn't see the latest batshit crazy thing that Trump said.
No,
Which one is more egregious and more worthy of jail time? Which one is more seditious or more just you got to be kidding me? I'll take the you got to be kidding me over the holy shit they lied about this guy's mental capabilities.
so I have been on record in
And
saying
I hate
this.
doing what I just did, but
No, I and
sometimes it
it's
begs it. Sometimes.
so I fully supported them. And this is going to sound crazy, so let me finish it. I
Sure,
fully
sure.
supported them lying about Biden's sharpness. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
come on, they didn't have to lie that hard. Okay, it's pretty much we could see it, right?
Right.
And I would have exactly the same problem with anybody in the Trump administration inside the White House coming out and saying Donald Trump's got, I forget what it is, Alzheimer's. I think that's the rumor that's going around, and he's losing it. Okay,
Right, right, right.
because at that point you're not just a president. Okay, it's not about you; it's about the presidency. And
Yep,
there's
good point.
one person that's got their finger on the nuclear buttons. And the last thing we want Russia or China to think is that guy doesn't have it. He may not even know it's a button. Okay. So the presidency there have to be some guardrails in there. Now, I have a whole lot of issues with the Biden administration and some of the things that they've done. But that's not one of them. Okay.
Mhm.
Because, and let me tell you something. If Biden uh, had not said, I'm going to run for reelection, when he'd been whispering to everybody, by the way, okay, that I'm not going to run for reelection, I'm a one-term president, I think the outcome of this last election would have been different. You may disagree with that, but there's a whole lot of people that in the Democratic Party just said, hell with this. I don't want Kamala Harris. I don't want, Joe Biden. I don't want any of it. And
Mhm.
so we didn't get the best of the best. I am an avid never Trumper. I always will be. I get
Mhm.
that, and I get that
Sure.
you're much more trans. I think you seem to me at least that you're a lot easier going, and you're kind of like Bill says, balls and strikes.
I
Okay,
Bill puts it that is the way our guy Bill O'Reilly puts it. He calls balls and strikes, and that's I think the only way you can sleep at night as a Republican or a conservative in America with a President Trump, because sometimes, man, it's high heat right down the friggin' middle and bam. And other times it's a wild pitch that goes, over the dugout, and hits a fan and kills them. So,
right.
it's like, yeah, so balls and strikes, man, it ain't always just on the paint. Sometimes these balls and strikes are really crazy, and you have to be intellectually honest about it. And having an intellectually honest conversation about Donald Trump is difficult. I would say for people like you and me, you hate the guy so much you might have a hard time calling balls and strikes,
Yeah,
and seeing the forest through the trees. And I might just loathe an open border so bad that I'll be willing to go 25 million or 6 million. The border's closed, right? So like,
right.
which we were just talking about right here. So It's, man, this guy is not like, this is what happens when 250 years of, boy, what would it be like to have a non-politician? Well, we got
With
him.
that, we found out. We're
And he
finding out.
came down, and just as the scriptures wrote, he came down a golden escalator to do it. Holy shit!
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. That I hate the guy so much. I'm, you know, I'm anything that he does right. Okay, I have a tendency to not even believe it or like it. I think that's a very good point, and that's at least as bad as the folks that anything
Oh,
he does at all is
yeah,
100% right.
and dude, to your point, and sorry to jump, but you know what I tell you, on social media this week, I put a post up rebuking, denouncing, and shredding the president for the way that he went after the Rob
Oh,
Reiner,
yeah,
and it disgusted me. And I'm telling you, the shit that I took from Republicans who live near me and people who like know me organically for real in town and around, let alone people who listen to my radio show. The shit that I took from people because I said Trump needs to be better.
that's right.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. There are people that, I don't know what the opposite of Trump derangement syndrome is, but there are people who have a fanboy something. We got to come up with a term for the opposite of
Well, it's
derangement.
still Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh,
It's
you know
just on
what?
it's on the other side, right?
You're right. Damn
You
it. You're
know,
right. It is Trump derangement. Holy shit, it
but
is.
the No Bull Political Arena is on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us and your host a follow.
Hey everybody, this is Sophia Nelson. Follow me at I am Sophia Nelson on every one of my social media platforms.
I'm Bill O'Reilly, and you can reach me at Twitter at WFBOR.
Hey, this is TJ. Follow me on X or Twitter at TJ McCormack.
This is Brian Mistro, and you can follow me on X at Brian_Mistro or follow along on Facebook at Brian.Mistro.
A Noble Media Group member.